Focus. You can do this. Just meditate. Stop fidgeting and sit still. Focus. Breathe. Gah, what is that noise? It's so distracting. Stop it. Just focus, will you? And this was my first experience with meditation, this self-criticizing conversation in my head. Every time I tried to meditate, I couldn't stop this constant dialogue, which would inevitably distract me from my purpose. Eventually, I gave up. Why bother? I was never going to figure out how to meditate. And how happy I was to be proven wrong. I had often read in leadership books and heard in interviews that many successful people and leaders incorporate meditation into their daily rituals. I convinced myself that to be successful, I had to learn to meditate. Hence my failed attempts to incorporate the practice into my life. I don't know why it didn't work. Maybe it was the wrong motivation. Maybe I wasn't open to the idea of spirituality in my life, or maybe I just didn't have the patience to practice. It could have been any number of factors. But after my health took a hit, I felt I had no other choice. In the end, my desire to live a happy and healthy life brought me back to meditation. But it was a long journey to that realization. And I hope by telling my story, it helps you to find your journey to that realization of what meditation can bring to your life. I had my head smashed in and my heart cut open before I turned 23 years old. The car accident that I had at 19 years old required facial reconstructive surgery around the left orbit, and the heart aneurysm at 23 required installing an artificial heart valve. Now, the wonders of modern medical science saved my life twice. Not surprisingly, I was in survival mode for an extended period of my life, and after 2 major surgeries, I was certain I never wanted to enter a hospital again. Luckily, my body was young enough to bounce back, but the emotional and mental state took a lot longer to recover from the trauma. I ended up seeing a therapist to deal with the emotional trauma, but somehow I still felt like I was missing a part of the equation and was in a perpetual state of healing. When it came to my career, I grasped at any opportunity that was offered to me. I felt I was always running to keep up with the pack, racing to catch up after 6 years of absence from work due to the surgeries. At 35, I found myself in a senior management role at a bank, deep into the recesses of corporate career. The corporate world, as many of you know, can be exhausting, creating an exaggerated discontent and disconnect between our work lives and our well-being. And for the large part, health is consistently ignored. Indications of work-related stress differ for everybody. For me, the stress led to poor sleep, poor eating habits, poor posture, manifesting in a lack of patience, a distinct lack of energy, and periodic headaches that were brutal. What I initially thought was a toothache, I was embarrassingly advised by a dentist, was pain from the pressure of clenching my jaw so tightly that I had created headaches for myself. I was prescribed muscle relaxants. Then when my back went out, I was horrified when I couldn't stand up straight for a week. This was the first time in my life that I had health issues that were avoidable. I felt incredibly lucky to have survived 2 surgeries, but quite frankly, I wasn't looking after myself. And then in the spring of 2012, at the ripe old age of 37, I decided things needed to change, and I took pretty extreme action. I quit my job. I hit the road in an effort to improve my health and well-being. And due to the previous surgeries and physical rehabilitation, I had never had the opportunity to backpack through Thailand or Asia. So I mapped out a travel plan and left within a month. It was the right move. It took me some time to find my feet, but eventually I could feel a lightness of being that the weight of work was lifted. My health and vitality improved through the sheer effort of traversing the globe, and I felt happy and relaxed. Then the inevitable happened and fear set back in. What would happen when I got back? This wasn't meant to be a vacation. It was meant to be a permanent shift of awareness to improve and maintain good health. Was this relaxation sustainable in the real world? Would I just regress into my previous state of being, or could I make this change more permanent? I was completing an international master's degree at the time of my hiatus, and we were next scheduled to meet in India. I wanted to explore alternative methods to keep this newfound energy and lightness going in my life after I re-entered the corporate world, so I began my search for Rishikesh. Now, Rishikesh, for those that don't know, is the town the Beatles brought to fame when they first visited an ashram there in 1968. And as I began to research ashrams that I could tack on to the end of the study module, I realized I was a bit of a cynic. Yeah, being a bit of a cynic at the time, as I began to research online, I instinctively steered clear of any ashrams that claimed I would find enlightenment in 1 week, and instead focused on those that made promises to teach participants how to create balance in their lives. I found one that seemed like a good fit, primarily because it was run by an ex-marketeer from Netherlands and a yogi from India. I felt somehow this would create a bridge between understanding of corporate world pressures and contemplation of the old world. And the website shared an example of a daily schedule which appealed to my structured mind. Yoga in the morning, breakfast, massage or teachings, meditation, sleep, and repeat. The room looked cozy, the view of the Ganges from the terrace inspirational, and there were books to read, and I could take a journal with me. And if all else failed, there was a village nearby with the possibility of escape via an internet cafe. Brilliant seemed easy enough. And then came my first day with meditation. Yoga was great. I liked getting up early and focusing on the breath. A calm resonated from the gentle stretching, and it was relatively easy, having done yoga consistently in the past. Food was basic and nutritious. I enjoyed the vegetarian food, so it was not difficult for me to adjust to an Ayurvedic diet. The teachings were interesting. I had not understood the origin of yoga, the intent or the habits of a yogic lifestyle, and the teachings I received at the ashram compounded my belief that my stay had been a good course of action. They appealed to my intellectual need to always be learning, and so I dove into the classes wholeheartedly. Meditation, however, was painful. I had tried to meditate in the past, as you heard at the beginning of this audio, and I felt I had failed miserably. I was always distracted. I was never able to sit still. I really hoped that being immersed in the culture of yoga and with a yogi as a guide, I would finally conquer the method and add this to my tool of resources and in my toolkit. There were 3 requirements for meditation at the ashram. The mala was interesting. So we were given a mala, prayer beads, and instructions on how to hold them and use them. Mala is Sanskrit script for garland, originally worn by Hindu and Buddhist monks who believed that they provided better concentration for prolonged meditation. We were instructed to grasp the mala with our prominent hand, laying the hands on the knees and holding 1 bead of the mala between the middle finger and the thumb. And as we repeated the mantra, we simultaneously moved a bead one at a time through the fingers and progressed through the entire mala. We were given a basic mantra that the ashram used in meditation practice. A mantra can often be a sound, like Om, a word, or a sentence that is repeated to aid concentration. We could have created our own mantras, as it was the meaning we attributed to the mantra that made it sacred. I used the basic mantra I was given, which was difficult to pronounce, but I had none of my own. So the one I was given was Om Aim Rim Klim Chamandaya Vichi. The third tool was a seated position. We were given instruction to sit cross-legged, as is the tradition in meditation, to center the spiritual chakras. If we were unable to sit cross-legged comfortably, we would find another posture. Personally, I prefer to lay both legs on the ground one in front of the other, and by placing a cushion under my sit bone, it helped to take the pressure off my knees and ankles and elongated my spine for a straighter posture. Okay, all 3 tools, got it. Bring on the meditation. Annie Pema Shodron said, if it weren't for my mind, my meditation would be excellent. So perhaps I was deceiving myself, or I didn't realize that how my own thoughts would serve to destroy my concentration. But in the end, my overactive mind got in the way. Am I holding the mala right? It feels awkward. I think I skipped a bead. Am I sitting properly? It feels like I'm slouching. Maybe I should just adjust the cushion a little bit. I don't think I'm saying this mantra right. Is it Om Aim or Aim Om to start? God, my foot is numb. How am I supposed to meditate when my foot is numb? There's a dog barking. Why is there a dog barking so much outside? Shush, I'm trying to meditate. Oh no, what is that dripping sound? Now I want to go to the washroom. God, what am I doing here? I better figure this out. What am I going to do when I get home? Ugh, I feel hungry. Wonder if I can request that we change this up and I just get to dinner. Oh, better not. There's other people in the room. They're rocking the meditation and I can't do it. I just can't sit here. Oh, I'll just sit. I'll just sit still and suffer through it. And repeat for 2 hours straight. When the session finally ended, I tried to uncross my legs and found my foot completely asleep. I sat there for 10 minutes waiting for the sense to come back to my foot. I felt like I wanted to cry from disappointment. And gradually, I stumbled to a stand, headed out the door. And I just felt like I can't fail. I was at this ashram, for goodness sakes. Maybe sleep would help me gain perspective. Over breakfast the next morning, I shared my disappointment. I told them I just couldn't understand why it felt impossible to sit still and repeat a mantra for 10 minutes. And if I couldn't do it for 10 minutes, how on earth was I going to do it for 2 hours? And what was I doing wrong? Was there a trick to the process I was missing? What was the intent with the mala? My ashram guides smiled. They said my mind was playing tricks on me. Meditation was simply about sitting silently, sitting still and quieting my mind. And that's all. The important thing was to try, to sit there and try. There was no right or wrong. It would come with practice. The constant mind chatter, the fidgeting, was all a signal of long-held stress, aches and pains. And sitting still would allow the mind and body to release those things. And then came an important tip that changed my entire relationship with meditation: acknowledgement. If a thought came to me, I was instructed to stop fighting it, stop judging myself, to acknowledge the thought, and then just come back to the mantra. Don't ignore it. Don't try to stop it. Just acknowledge it and then move away from it. Okay, right, got it. Second day, here we go. Mala, check. Mantra, check. Seated position, check. I closed my eyes. I breathed deeply and I started to repeat my mantra. I held one bead between my finger and my thumb. I breathed deeply. I repeated my mantra and I moved to the next bead and repeated it again. My foot started to fall asleep. I acknowledged it. I breathed deeply, brought my focus back to the feel of the mala in my hand and the mantra repeating in my head. The dog started barking. I acknowledged it. I breathed deeply, brought my focus back to the feel of the mala in my hand and the mantra I was repeating in my head. My mind started thinking about the future. I acknowledged it. I breathed deeply. And I came back to the mantra in my head. I spent the entire time, 2 whole hours, acknowledging thought after thought after thought and letting them go. The dripping water, the growling stomach, the numb foot, the barking dog, the worry about the future, the self-criticism, it was all still there. But I was able to take my focus back to the mala and mantra every single time a thought invaded my meditation space. It wasn't easy, and my mind wandered more than once. But by the end of the 2 hours, I felt like I had been more focused on bringing my attention back to the meditation than on my racing thoughts. That was it. That's simple. Using the tools given to me, I was able to bring my mind back to the meditation. This simple, elegant solution of acknowledgement enabled me to sit through 2 hours without feeling like it was some form of cruel punishment. I was going to keep going. Well, practice makes perfect. And after 1 week of daily meditation, I no longer thought about my foot, the dog, or worried about the future. I sat perfectly still for 2 hours, mindful and present in my meditation. I could have screamed for joy, though that didn't feel very ashram-like. So instead, I sat down with my journal and I began to write about the practice, about my life, about whatever came to mind. And I discovered that not only was I practicing gratitude in my writing, but I was also uncovering my creativity. I was more energized than ever before, and I seemed to fill the pages in my journal unreservedly. By the 10th day at the ashram, I awoke with something that I had not felt ever in my life. An overwhelming feeling of contentment and peace. Not a worry on my mind. I don't know about you, but I awake most days with a thought in my mind, something I need to get done, something that's creating anxiety for me, or something that I'm worried about. I awoke with a feeling of contentment and peace and not a single thought in my mind. That feeling of contentment is one I have come back to time and time again since leaving the ashram, without having to pack up and leave my job, without returning to the sanctity of the ashram, and by using the one tool that he taught me that above all others mattered the most: meditation.